Hello and welcome to today's tutorial. We are going to be exploring with some freeform. We're going to do a freeform necklace with a wolf inspired theme. We will be donating this necklace to the International Wolf Center, where they study and explore and teach the public all around the world about the wolf. So it's a really great cause. I'm going to walk you through ways to lay out the design and work with different elements and different components that I have available. So it's really a free-form piece in the way that it's going to morph the way it does. I kind of am starting out with a certain idea, but who knows how it's really going to end up. So I'm going to be teaching a little bit about the design, walking you through my back stitch, which might be a little bit different than some people teach, and we'll be working on my glues, some of the tools I use, and some little secrets in there hidden in and out. We're going to be doing some edging and finishing work. So I hope you really enjoy this tutorial. It was a lot of fun to make, and let's get started. Challenge. This is kind of the idea, the design I had in mind. This little guy is going to go here and hook up with this. I always use ultra suede. I like ultra suede. I know there's a lot of different things out there that you can use as a foundation. There's lacy stiff stuff. There's all kinds of things. But I like ultra suede. I like the way it feels. I like the way that you can get different colors. I get my ultra suede from fieldsfabrics.com. And what I'm doing here is kind of I always have lines. I like lines. You want to have a center vertical line because it's going to help your work stay symmetrical. Or even if you're doing an asymmetrical necklace, it helps to have the lines because then you can balance the piece out. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a moment. So these are going to go here, and you can see that I have these little lines here, so I know exactly where to place those. Now this little guy is going to go snug right up in here, and then I'm probably going to cut that off. This little, if you can see it, there's this little tiny branch here. I think I'm going to cut that off, but I don't know yet, so that it matches up with this branch. That's what I'm trying to get to have feel there. And then this little amethyst piece is going to go right there. And this is what I mean by the balance thing. As you can see here, that the way that this wolf is shaped, he kind of has a pouch that sticks out. So I can see right here that this is the distance to this line. So I want to kind of bring that balance to this side a little bit. So that's why I'm thinking I'm going to put this flower somewhere over here, so that when we bead around that flower, I'm going to have a similar distance here as I do here. Because if I don't have anything there and I just bead embroider around this piece, you may think, oh, well, let's put this here so that it's more balanced, but it's not going to be balanced. The balance is in the symmetry here and symmetry here. And by putting that little thing there, it could be anything, it could be a stone, but this also is bringing balance because you have this gold flower here, so why not put that gold flower here to give it that balance, okay? So we're kind of, it's asymmetrical in the sense that not everything is symmetrical, like the wolf itself isn't symmetrical, but we're bringing balance to it. So we are bringing some symmetry into this piece. I hope that what I'm saying is making sense. So the first thing that we want to do here, I kind of went through beforehand and just put some little marks down where things are going to get glued. So this wolf is going to get glued here. And then at the same time, we're also going to glue, we're going to use some aluminum foil. And one of my little tricks is if you have a cabochon that is clear, such as amethyst, amber, are two that I can think of offhand, they're clear. Now, if I were to glue this amethyst right onto the suede, it's going to change the background color. It's not going to be as brilliant. And so I'm going to first glue it to this piece of aluminum foil. It's something that you probably have in your kitchen. I know I had a student once ask me, where do you get your aluminum foil? And it's like, well, you have it in your kitchen. It's aluminum foil. And we're going to glue that on there too. And then once it dries, we'll trim it. And that's going to give you the true essence of that stone, okay? Now, if you're using lacy stiff stuff or a foundation that's white, you probably don't need to, you can skip that step. But I don't. I have a background that's a little tan. So let me see if I can, I like to use, when I glue my components, I like to use a little piece of paper, and I like to use my toothpick and spread the glue. The other thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take this is a piece of labradorite, a wolf, and I am going to just rough up the back of that. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I don't know. I'm just going to rough up the back of that as best as I can. Every stone's a little bit different, but by doing that, you can see where it's changing a little bit of color there, and that's what you want, because you want your glue to really, really hold your cabochon in place. And it depends on the stones too. That's probably good enough, because I want it to really stick around those edges. Now, like onyx, black onyx is really a tough one, because even sanding it sometimes you aren't going to get, it's hard, it's just a really hard stone, so it's hard to sand it and get anywhere with it. And then there's stones like Criscocola, which is, let me see if I have a piece of Criscocola laying around. I thought I did. This is Criscocola. And Criscocola is very soft, so you have to be really careful when sanding this stone, because it can chip it. So you want to be careful what stones you are sanding. Now this is just E6000, and I'm using that because everybody's familiar with E6000. So let's just go ahead and get this amethyst glued on. Now I know it's tricky for a lot of people to handle these smaller stones, and I get that. Here's a little trick is, without getting it all over my fingers, is you can use that toothpick to kind of pick it up and place it, and then you want to push it down so that that glue squirts out. You want the glue to stick out, because what we're going to do once the glue dries is we're going to just trim that glue completely off. So we'll just set that aside. And the reason I like using the toothpick and just a separate piece of paper for my glue is because it's really much easier for me to kind of really spread the glue around. I know a lot of people just squirt a big glob on the back of their stone and call it good, but I like to have a little bit more control. And this way I can really get my glue out to the edges, because like the ear is a place you really want to have your glue on his snout there, because that's another place that's going to be sticking out. And it's always better to have a little bit more glue than not enough, because you can always clean it up. So now I'm going to put him right there where I kind of had the pre-marked. And to me, this is symmetrical because I'm using the tip of his ear here and the round part of his body. Now I know that the snout goes off to the side, and so it's not symmetrical, but it is symmetrical. It's as even and balanced as I can get between those two marks there. And I'm pushing them down, and then I'm cleaning off that toothpick, and I'm going around and cleaning up any excess glue that might have squirted out. Okay, so now let me turn this so I can see. I'm just taking my toothpick around the edges, and he seems like he's kind of concave around the edge, like. So I am going to just pick him up and make sure that, kind of making sure that he is nice and glued down on that suede, and I don't have any excess glue to clean up. Okay, he looks pretty good. So we're going to let that glue take a dry now. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is get some thread. Now I use Nymo B. I like Nymo. I've been using it for, 40 years or so. It works for me. I usually use about a yard of thread. And then the other thing that I use is sharps. These are sharps, so they're a size 12 needle, but they're a little bit shorter. And I like sharps. Some people don't like sharps, but I think they're awesome. You can use the longs, so this would be a 12 long. I just say long because they're longer, but it's a little bit longer bead. These I use a lot for doing like fringe and stuff like that. Now when I thread a needle, I try to get it as close, you can barely even see it. What I'm doing is I'm actually taking the eye of the needle and I'm pushing it on to the thread, actually more so than pushing the thread into the needle. I'm pushing the needle onto the thread. Now, I know for some of you that looks really easy, but after you've been doing it for a while, it is easy. So now I just do a real simple knot, and then I do actually 3 knots. 2, and then 3, just like that. And then I like to cut my tails off. I don't like long tails. They drive me crazy. Okay, so we're going to start with the back stitch. We'll start with the 4 just to show you what the back stitch 4 is. And what I mean by 4 is you put on 4 beads. I like the back stitch 6. Nobody uses it. I like it because I like to get my projects done. And I'll talk about that a little bit. But when I'm starting out, whether this is a asymmetric cabochon or something totally round, I like to start in like a little nook. If it's something like this, I want to start right in here in this corner. So I'm getting my needle right up next to that cabochon. And I'm going to put on 4 of these. These are a size 15 bead. And what I'm going to show you, now there's a couple ways you can do this. You can either hold it, but I find lately I've been liking to just lay the beads down like so, and then take my needle and push it down right at the end of that row, okay? So you're coming in right at the end of that row. Come on, untangle. Just like that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to bring that needle up right in between. If anything, it's a little this side of those 2 middle beads, the second and the third bead, okay? And then we're going to go out those last 2 beads. Now this is a little bit trickier when you have a cabochon that is kind of an odd shape, because if it was a perfectly, like when we get out here, it's going to be a lot easier, but this is a really kind of a tricky little area. Now this time I'm going to use the back stitch 6, and this is one that I use most of the time. And basically I'm just using 6 beads rather than 4, and it goes a lot faster when you put on that 6 bead. So we're going again to the end of that row, and then we're going in between. This time it would be the 3rd and the 4th bead. Now I don't know if you can see my needle, but I'm trying to get on this side of that 3rd and 4th bead, because if I come up on this side, what it's going to do is it's kind of going to pull those beads apart, and I don't want that to happen. So I'm going to try, if anything, to come a little bit further to this side of the 3rd bead, and then you're going out the last 3 beads. And again, this is kind of tricky because of the shape of this cabochon. And that's going to get easier as we go around. So then we're putting on another 6 beads. Now you can hold it. You can hold it to do this too. You don't have to lay it down flat. I just find sometimes it works easier for me to make sure I get my beads where they should be. And then we're going a little bit, I guess it would be north of that 3rd bead. So we're working our way slowly around this cabochon. And you can use any beads you want. I like the 15s. You get more detail with the 15s. And my other favorite bead is these 9s. They're a check 9 cut gold iris. They're kind of like my signature bead. And I really highly recommend that, you come up with your own signature bead, because, everybody needs their own signature bead. Okay, so we're just going to keep going, adding 6 beads at a time. If you're not comfortable with the 6 beads, use 4 beads. Use 2 beads. Use whatever makes you more comfortable. I don't know. I used to do production work, meaning that I had a wholesale business. I did, for more than 30 years, I did beadwork wholesale, and I had to get orders done, and I just started using the back stitch 6, and it works great for me. But again, this is my tutorial. This is how I do it, which means I'm just showing you how I do it. You can do it any way you want, whatever makes you comfortable. I know there's a lot of other people out there that teach different ways of some teachers only use 2 beads at a time or 3 beads at a time. So I think it's all up to you. I personally think that using the 6 beads makes the beads flow a little bit nicer, but that's just me. Again, I want you to use what works for you. Now, as we get up towards the end of this, where this ear is, this is where I'm going to shoot back down to probably using 4 beads, because you really want it to lay snug around that ear, okay? So we're going to lay that around the ear. Go right down there. And you could even shoot back to a couple beads or 3 beads when you're working around a sharp little edge like that, because you really want that beadwork to stay down. So here I'll go ahead and use 4 again as we're working around that ear. So I'm kind of just taking that thread and going, pulling it down next to the stone. And then here, since we have this little crook coming up, and what I mean by that is, see how we got this little angle coming in here? So I'm probably just going to put, I think maybe 2 or 3. Let me see where 2 beads get me. If I lay it down, I think I could do 3. I'm going to just do 3, and that's going to get me right where that corner is. Right where that corner is, okay? Now I'm just going to go back in between that last bead there, not that bead. And then I should be able to, I'm just going to add 4 more, because you want it to be tacked down in those kind of corners like that. See, if I didn't have it tacked down in that corner, then there's a possibility that it's just going to go straight. And I really want to try and get the angle of this woof, the nice, beautiful angles of this woof. I want it to be snug around there. So this is why I'm going back down to that back stitch 4, because of those angles there. And I think, well, I might be able to get 6 just around the eye there into that next little corner or crook. Let's see where that takes us. Let's see. Yeah, I think that'll work perfect. See how it took us right into that? And we're going to go back out the 3. So it's a little bit more detail when you have to start working your way around these angles. Now, my question, yeah, I think I can go ahead and do it. I was almost going to go down and start a new row, but I think we can make this work. I think I can get 6 on there. Yep, you can go 6 right to the snout. And then I'm probably going to shoot down to 4 to make it around that corner there. So I'm going to lay it down this time. I think I don't know. It depends. If I'm wailing away, I don't mind holding it. But sometimes when I'm trying to work in the details stuff, I like to just lay it down flat. I think, again, it's kind of one of those personal things that you have to figure out what works for you. And I think it depends on what you're working on, too. Like, this is kind of a tricky little area here. And then we're getting really close here to that inside corner. And it looks like, I think, let me try 2 and see where that gets us. That gets us, I think if I could find a small little bead, sometimes you can, that's almost too small. Let's go with 3 and see what happens. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go right next to that first bead that was placed there. It looks like that'll work. Yeah, okay, so now what we want to do is I'm going to come back up, and I'm going to go, that was the last bead that I put on. My intention is to try and get into this bead. And it's kind of tricky when you're in these little corners like this. But it's real important with bead embroidery when you're doing your rows is to go back after you've done a row around something, is you want to go back through the whole row again. And we're just passing the needle through the beads. We're not actually going back down through the suede, okay? We're just going back through the row. And here what I'm going to do, because I really want this to be tacked, I am going to go back down through the suede because I really want that corner to be snug. And then I'm going to come back up right next to it and hopefully not pull that thread out. You know, you want it to catch some of the suede. And then we're going to go again. This is another area that I kind of really want that to be tacked down in that corner. So I am going to go back down. Now, that's not something I would normally do if we're just beading around, say, an oval cab or a round cab. You don't have to do that. But since we have these little corners, it's kind of a good thing to tack down any place that we want them to be tacked down. Now, this is another tricky area here because it's hard to get that needle in to too many beads other than just a few. And, you know, make sure, I mean, this is really kind of a quick process to go back through, but certainly keep an eye on it because there are times when you will not go back through a bead, and it's not the end of the world. That's one of the things I like about bead embroidery is it's pretty forgiving. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but you do want to try and get back through all of the beads. And so that's what we're doing here is we're just going all the way back through that row. And what it does is it kind of not only reinforces your beadwork, but it makes the beads nice and happy and snug around the stone. Okay, so now we're getting close to the end here. And I'm just going to take that needle and go right in the last couple of beads there and out the back. Yay, okay. Doesn't look too bad, right? Now, the next step is going to be, we're going to glue this in place. This was gifted to me by a lady, one of my students, Darcy Rosner, and she made it out of PMC, I believe, precious metal clay. And whenever people gift me a stone or a bead, I try to work it into a piece that I myself am going to donate because I just don't feel good about using it in something that I'm going to sell because it was gifted to me. So this is perfect for this. So I'm going to glue that right there. I kind of already marked it. And then my intention is that this is going to get glued right in there. Now see, that changed since I put that row of beads in there. I'm wondering, you know what I think I'm going to do? I think I'm going to cut this out. Now, I don't know if I can cut that. I might have to use a little saw to do that. So I was able to, I was able to just use my wire cutters and I cut that little piece off. And the other thing I was able to do, because since I put this row of beads in there, it kind of changed everything. So I was able to use my needle nose pliers and just bend this a little bit so that now it looks like it fits perfectly in there. You've got that beautiful angle. This is symmetrical where I want it. So it looks like this branch is continuing down, and that's kind of what I wanted to do. So my next step in this piece is going to be to glue this down. So again, I'm going to use my E6000 and a toothpick, and we're just going to go ahead. And sometimes, since we're on a tutorial, I like to just rough up the back of things. I just find that some stuff just needs to be roughed up so that it adheres really well. It gives you that adhesion that you want. So this is just a little metal thing that I got, and it's just going to scratch up the back. I suppose I could use sandpaper, but I don't know if it would work or not. And the other question I have, and I don't know yet, and I might change, and I'll just run it by you guys since you're watching, is I'm thinking about cutting this branch off. I don't know if I'm going to. I actually, the more I think about it, I probably won't because I'm thinking I'm going to bead around it, and then when I get here, I'll just continue on the other side. I kind of like the branch hanging off, but I'm not sure. But that's something that I can probably do towards the end. So I'm going to go ahead and spread my glue. I'm not going to put any glue on that branch though, because I'm thinking if I leave it, it's just going to hang off of the piece itself. So I'm using my trusty toothpick to get all that glue spread out where I want it. Okay, and then I have my little lines. So it's symmetrical from these lines. Looks like I did a fairly clean job. Not too much glue sticking out. And this one, I'm just going to add some glue along the branch here. And I probably will, I might even end up tacking it down, meaning sewing it down a little bit just to make sure that it's gonna stick. Okay, now let's see if we can get that in place without getting glue all over everything. And it looks like that branch is continuing, so I can clean up that little bit of glue there. Okay. Very cool. E6 sound is really kind of easy to clean up. Some of the other glues, not so much. Okay. Now the other thing I was going to show you while I got your attention, and I'm using kind of a crappier pair of scissors rather than my good scissors. So I'm going to just show you how we can trim around this stone here. Actually, you know, I was going to think the glue might still be a little wet, but we're just trimming it off, just like so. See? Now you can really see the shine of that stone. So even if I glue it onto this suede, it's going to work perfect. All right, let's let that glue dry. Let the glue dry enough, so I'm going to move these off. And I lucked out because when I ended my thread, it was right here, and so I think what I'm going to do is just continue right there. And come in right next to that. I know a lot of people might ask, you know, do you tie a knot every time you... Like if I was going to start, if I had to start down here, I would probably tie a knot in the back of my piece. But I conveniently lucked out. So again, let's see where the back stitch 6 gets us. Looks like it'll work just fine. And I think what I'm going to do is just outline this branch with the 15s and probably go all the way around. So, come on, there we go. Sometimes it's tricky working around these things. Okay, I think the next one I'm just probably going to be able to get 5 beads in. Let's see. Yep, 5. Perfect. And the question arises as to whether I should go all the way around the branch with that. Do I go all the way around, or do I? Yeah, I might as well, I guess. Let's see what it looks like. Oh, don't want to go there. And I'm going to have to take this down to probably maybe just 3 beads, because that's a really sharp little corner there. Yeah, I guess I will bead around it. And I think what I'm going to do at some point is put a row of the 9s up here. but I really want that to be tight around that top of the branch. I think that looks good. Now we can go back to the 6, putting on 6. I know a lot of people would think, oh, wouldn't you want to use, because these are silver components, and wouldn't you want to make a silver necklace? I love silver and gold. I love silver components with gold beads. I just think they're stunning. They just go so well together. You could certainly add silver beads. I don't think they would pop out as much. I think I like the way that it pops out. Oh, my dogs are gonna bark, so excuse them. They bark at everything. Oh, maybe not. They're just running down the stairs. I have 3 dogs. I think you might have met them in my introduction. And I told you, I warned you that they sometimes like to, I don't know if Maya's gonna, Maya with her squeaky ball, I don't know if you've heard her with her squeaky ball, but actually we've got quite a bit of snow out there and she's lost a lot of her squeaky balls outside, so maybe she'll get some for Christmas. I don't know. But she likes to run around with her squeaky ball in her mouth. So I'm kind of just going behind, I don't know if you can see, but I'm kind of going behind that flower there. And you know what? I think while I'm at it, I'm going to kind of tack that branch down, and I'm going to tack it down right behind that flower because you won't even really see it. And I'm just feeling like it needs that little bit of extra security there so that it doesn't pop up. And you won't even, so it's just helping anchor it down. And so now I'm just going to do a real boring stitch. I'll probably won't make you watch the whole thing, but I'm going to just take I'm going to do the back stitch 6 all the way around this. Okay, so I've made it all the way around and back up, and now I'm back up here again. And I'm going to go up with my needle and just tack this there's a hole in this branch, conveniently came with a hole. But the other thing I'm going to do, just to cover up that hole, is I have these are size 15, but I got them from Betsy at Beyond Beadery, and they're a 15. I don't know, they're just a little bit smaller than a normal 15, and I really like them because I can get a lot of little extra detail out of these smaller beads. And so what I'm going to do is just wrap that branch. Let's see if I'm just going to wrap it around. Yeah, I think that'll be, let's see if that's good. Yeah, I like that. See, I'm just going to cover up that whole end of the branch thing. How many did I put on? I think I put 5 on. Let me see, 1, 2, 2. Actually, I think I put 6 on, but I might back it down now to 5. 1, 2. The only thing is sometimes they stick together, but I really like the detail. Oh, I lost that bead. I like the detail that you can get with some of these smaller beads. Okay, and then I think I'm just going to put maybe 3 right up in there, just to cover up that. I like that. See how that kind of just finishes that end off? Really cool. I like the way that turned out. While I'm up here, I think what I'm going to do, because I was thinking about doing it anyway, is I have a little bit of thread left, so I'm going to add a row of the 9s. Oh, that one looks like I might have too much there, right there. So we're slowly kind of filling some stuff in here. That looks like I need one. The thing I like about these 9s is they're really not that consistent in size, so you can get bigger, like see that bigger one just fit perfect there. And I just love the color of them. They're just such pretty beads. Okay, so I think that looks good. And My thread is getting short, so what I'm going to show you is that I do, again, my knots. I go 1, 2 loops, bring it down as close as I can, thumb over or finger over, and then I do one more, get it as close as I can, and pull it. Another way to do a knot, depending on how much thread I have, is just to grab a little bit of the suede that you have and then go back through and just do a knot that way. And then again, I like to cut my thread close. I don't like tails. Tails drive me nuts. So here's where we are so far. It's growing. It's getting there. So now I think we'll go ahead. I'm just taking my finger and kind of going around this amethyst cab and making sure that we got as much of the glue and the foil off, now that I know that the glue is set pretty well. And what we're going to do is we're going to glue that. I'm wondering if you know what? I think I'm going to, and I shouldn't have cut that thread yet because I could have used that. So I have like little pieces of thread that, if it's over a certain amount, I won't throw it out. The older I get, I just don't like to throw stuff out. So I'll use it. So I have these little pieces of thread because what I was thinking is, let me explain if I put this right in there, I think it's too close in, right? I just feel it needs to be out. So I'm thinking what I'm going to do is put a little row of the 9s right there. It'll kind of balance that out. So let me just put that row of 9s there. I think that one could be a little bit longer, so I'll go shopping for a little bit longer one. Let's see, maybe this one. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so we're just going to put that little row of 9s in there, and I will go back through them just because it always makes the rows sit nicer when you tack it down and you go back through it, just the way it is. Okay, now I think if I glue this, and I think I'm going to do a row. Normally, when I do my embroidery, I don't like glue a bunch of things. Like I wouldn't glue all the components and where I think they need to be, because for me, it always changes. So I like to glue one thing, stitch around it, glue in another thing, stitch around that. Because to me, it's always changing and morphing. And so, but in this case, I think I'm going to glue the little amethyst in and just leave enough room around that I can do a full row of the 15s around it. So in this case, I am going to glue that there. I could put a row of 15s down here, but I really think I want to have a row of 15s all around that stone. So that's what I'm going to do here. So get another little piece of cardboard with some E6000 and glue that little stone in place. And I'm wondering, no, I don't think, I'm just thinking to myself, and you guys get to listen to me think. I was thinking of gluing that little flower into place, but I think I'm not, because, I'll explain here in a minute. Just get that glued. And I'm just kind of guessing as to where that row of 15s is gonna, yeah, that looks good, I think. Because I was thinking, okay, so these are gonna go like so, somewhere like that. And I was gonna glue it here, but you know what? I think I'm gonna do a row of 9s around here first, and then that's going to pull that out a little bit more, and then it'll be more even. So while that's gluing, let me just, I'm going to show you another little thing. Now these are ceramic, and the artist puts these little things on, and and I always cut them off because I don't want them or need them. So I thought I'd show you how I do that. And when I'm cutting these off, I try to grab the little thing because they tend to fly, and then somebody inevitably is going to step on them. And you can see there's these little things that are still stuck there. So I have these little metal files, and I just go ahead and file those down so that they don't poke or cut the thread. There's just these little metal files. I think you can probably get them anywhere. Rio Grande probably has them. Fire Mountain probably has them. Any kind of jewelry catalog is going to have them. So see, now I have that. That's gone. So I'm going to go ahead and get this one. Try to get it as close as you can. I'm really hard on my wire cutters. They don't last very long because I'm always cutting stuff that I shouldn't be with them. And sometimes you'll crack the ceramic. It depends on... I've done it before. I've cracked the ceramic and ruined pieces, but you know, you never know until you do it, and you just kind of got to be careful. But yeah, that's nice and smooth. So those are going to go there. I'm not going to cut this one because that's going to be the dangle. Although I might. I don't know yet because I'm thinking until I get to that point, I don't know. I might have to end up putting something to make this a little bit more substantial, but I don't know it yet what I'm going to do. The other thing another little trick I do is I'll take a piece of tape, and any of those little metal things, I'll sometimes put them in tape. Like if I break a needle, I'll wrap it in tape because that way when I throw it out, I know that it's going to get thrown out. It's not something that my dogs or I or my husband is going to step on and regret later on. So when you have little component pieces like that, it's always good to just take an extra moment and dispose of them properly. Okay, so let's let that dry. Okay, so we've had a chance to let the glue dry for the amethyst, and change of plan. And this is why I wanted to walk you through my design process, because things change. And that's one of the reasons why I don't like to glue a bunch of components down first, because I got these little branches. These are from Nina Designs, ninadesigns.com. And I think I need to put one there. It needs to happen. So I just like the way it's balancing. It's giving me some silver and the branches on this side. And so that's just got to be the way it's going to happen. So that being said, I think what let's do is let's go ahead and stitch around this stone. It's probably, the glue is still a little wet, so I'm going to kind of just make sure I keep my thumb on there so I don't pop it off. Happens a lot. That's sometimes why I like to work on a couple projects at a time, or make a pair of earrings to go with something, because while I'm waiting for a stone to dry, I can very easily, while the stone's drying, pop over to the other project or the earrings, and then while I glue that stone down, then I can hop back. So I'm continuously working on something, because it drives me crazy to just sit there and twiddle my thumbs and wait for the glue to dry. So I think, but while I was sitting here looking at it, waiting for the glue to dry, I said, what would it look like? And I'll talk to you about that. Let me just get this, and I think I just pulled the thread out of my needle. So once again, you're pushing the needle onto the thread. And even though this is a fairly small stone, I can still do the back stitch 6 around it. And it'll be just fine. Okay. Oh, look, I spaced it just about perfectly, didn't I? All right. I think that there's, I mean, sometimes when you're looking at your designs, you really have to kind of figure out do I put a row of beads down first before I glue that down, or all of these things. Take them all into consideration, because it's going to change the whole design process completely. Okay, only 2 beads in between that one. See that? well, maybe 3. Let me see. Sometimes too many beads around a piece will make it buckle. But I think I'm going to try a thin one, a tiny thin bead to stick in there. I think sometimes less beads are better than more beads. See, now I'm going to have a problem threading my needle. Sometimes less beads is better, but I have a thin one here, so I'm going to see if that'll make the difference. Because if you have too many beads, sometimes, yeah, that's perfect. It will make the row buckle. So if you have a lot of beads that are buckling, it could be because you have too many is the reason. And I'm going back through that row of beads because that's just what I do, and it makes that whole row that much happier. Okay. I don't want you to get snagged around that flower. I've had that happen where it gets stuck on a piece of metal or some component and you think you're all good, and then you tie your knots and you cut everything, and then you notice that actually your thread was snagged on something. So, okay, back down. Now I want to kind of, and I pulled my needle off, so good time for that anyway. So what I'm thinking, this little guy is going to go, what did I say, like that, because this is going here. You could see what I'm doing, and this one's going here. And I want that branch. Yeah, I think that's going to be perfect. But I'm wondering, and this is my thought process, because I have to think, sometimes you have to think these things through before you just go gluing a bunch of stuff. So my thought process was, I should probably glue these down first. And that's way against what I normally do. But the reason I'm saying that I would think I should probably do that is because then what I can do is get a row of 15s around here and a row of 15s around here. And then when I glue this on, I can get it to where it'll sit next to that row of 15s. I could glue this down first and stitch around it and then put this up next to it, but I really feel that I want to have the row around these, just like I did around the stone. I want that look of the beads being all around that, and then I can bump this up next to it and go around it, because I'm probably going to do that same thing I did here, up here, and here. So my thought process is, let's go ahead and glue these in place first, and then I'll glue that down. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm thinking they're looking pretty symmetrical. I am just going to take this. Of course, I have one that doesn't work. I'm just trying to get a visual here of when I glue these. And you guys are seeing more of the up. I'm going to have to look through the camera to get a visual to make sure that this is symmetrical. So, looking down through the camera, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and get those in place. I'm moving my board here for some reason. I have it taped so it won't move on me, and then I go and move it anyway. Okay, so we're going to get those glued in place. Now, being that this is ceramic, I'm a little bit leery of sanding it or really doing anything, because I broke them before, and I think they're a little, being that they're ceramic, they're a little bit more porous, so they probably glue a little bit better. So I'm going to put this one about there. I'm not going to push down on it yet, because I want to make sure I get them both where I want them first. And oh, geez, that wasn't good. Oh, thank God it didn't get all over. Sticking to my fingers. Okay, let me just look at this. I got to look through the camera again. I think it looks pretty symmetrical. So I kind of jumped ahead a little bit and went ahead and glued these down and beaded around them. Again, I did the back stitch 6, and then I also glued this branch down with the flower and did the back stitch six around it. And also I used those smaller 15s to end those two parts of the branch. So this is where we're at right now, and here's what I'm thinking I'm going to do. I kind of want to bring that silver branch down, so I'm going to go ahead and we're going to stitch down 3 of these. I think these are like a 3mm ball, metal ball. So I'm going to come in right here and put on, I'm just going to go ahead and stitch them down. And there's going to be, and then what I'll do, since it's a bigger bead, I'm just going to go in what I call couch down, or most people call it, and I'm just going to tack down or couch down that center bead right there. Just like that. Kind of the same thing as the back stitch. You're just kind of bringing it so it's not going to be flopping around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come out this row. And since I have right here this kind of a really small little gap here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up a regular 15. And this is kind of a fun little trick that I have, is where I'm using these smaller 15s. And I'm going to put on 6, 2, 3. And I'm going to see where that brings me. Brings me right there. And so what I'm going to do, because that's a little bit bigger space there, I'm going to, I think I'm just going to go with a 15. Or, well, I guess I'll go with a 15. Whoop, I just lost that 15. And I'm just going to go right down in the middle there. And see how that covers up that little gap? And it looks like you did it purposely. We did it purposely. Now I'm not going to actually tack that down or couch it down like I normally would a back stitch, because I kind of want it to float there. I am going to go back through that row. And if it looks like it's not going to cooperate, I'm actually going to go back through that last metal bead here. Because I don't really, if I tack it down, my thought pattern is, if I tack it down here, it might pull that down, and I kind of want it to flow up. I want it to kind of rest above. Okay, so now I'm just going to go down right there. And then my next thought is I am going to add a row, and I'm going to start, I think, since there's a little space there, I'm going to add a row of 9s around, but I think what I'm going to do first is add one of these little 15s just to take up that gap. And then we'll go ahead and add, do the back stitch 6 again. That'll take me right there. Because what I'm trying to do now is fill in all these spaces that need to get filled in. And so I'm going to do that by adding the 9s and the 15s, or whatever it is I can come up with. So let's see where this gets us. Gets us pretty close. I think I can find a little narrow one to put in right there. Just like that. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so I'm going to go back through that row, as I do every row. Go back and reinforce it, and actually out that little tiny 15 there. And I'm thinking I'm going to add another little 15 in there, I think, just because there's a little bit of a gap. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to tie a knot. Like I normally do. And then we'll just trim that. And That's where we're at right now. So I'm thinking what I'm gonna do is balance those balls out, those 3 millimeter balls. Let me just tie a quick knot here. I don't know about quick. Normally they're quick, except when I'm trying to show you all, and they aren't quick. Like so. And I'm going to add 3 more of those balls up here, because what that's going to do, if you look at this visually, it's going to balance that out. So I have the 3 here, and now I have the 3 here. Okay. And again, I'm just going to couch down that middle, whoop, pull the needle off. That's what happens when you have kind of a short thread. You have a tendency to pull the needle off. And I'm going to change out a thread here in a minute, but I have enough to do what I think I want to do. So that goes down. And then we go through that row again. And then what I'm going to do, oh, see, it's snagging on that. Be careful sometimes, because the needle does, or the thread does get to snag on things. I'm going to go down here, and then what I'm going to do to kind of complement this side is I'm going to go down here with a row of the 9s. And again, I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably add a 15 this time and go 1, come on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I have that 15 would be the 6th, and this is just going to snug down. And this is where I think it helps to really put the piece on the table, and then you can get a better idea of how it's going to lay. So let's add 5 and see where that gets us. Might make it. Oh, look at that. Looks like we made it. And I'm going to put a little 15 right there, because there's that little bit of a gap there. Yeah, I think that'll work. I'll go up through those out the last 3 beads. And see, there's a little gap there. Well, when I go back up through this, I'm going to pull that in. So I'm going to go back up through this row like I normally would, but I'm going to come out here and just kind of crank that over. And now I'm going to go back down here again and go back through that whole row, because what's that's going to do is that's just going to make the whole row kind of flow nice and happy. And as I'm looking at this, and maybe you can see it, I see a little hole there. I'm going to add one of these little 15s right there to fill that in. So this is where we're at right now. All right, I'm going to tie a knot. And then I am going to rethread my needle. My thread is ready to go, and this is what we're looking at now. And I'm just gonna, this is where you have to start kind of looking at it and going, what do we do next? What do we do next? Well, I know that I think I'm gonna put a flower up here, because I like that. I think that looks really good. It takes care of this side. We have a little gap here, and how are we gonna fix that? Well, the first thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to do a row of 9s all the way around here. So let's do that. And I'm also going to stitch some 9s or something around this as well. So that's going to close that gap. But let's see where we get when we add that row of 9s. Now, as you can see here, it's really small, and then it gets wider. So I'm going to come down here as far as I can, and I'm going to add one of these little tiny 15s and a larger 15, and then I'm going to add 4 of the size 9s. So that's 6 beads. So we're still doing the back 6 stitch, but we're changing the bead size, and that's okay. There's, that's what's so wonderful about bead embroidery, is that you can kind of manipulate and change things as you need them to. So we're going to come up just like we would normally through the last 3, and we're going to work our way around with the size 9s. 1, 2, 3. Now, as we get up around that ear, again, I'm going to probably shoot down to 4 or less because we want to make it really tight around those little areas. And the other thing you can do too, if you're using these size 9s, is you could go to, they're such varied in size that you can pick some smaller size 9s that'll really kind of help get around that bend. So we're using smaller size 9s, and we're shooting down to 4, so we can make a nice bend around that ear. Okay. So again, I'm going to use smaller ones as best as I can see, them being smaller and less beads. Get us around that bend. And around the whole face, really, because the whole face kind of has these little curves to it. So let's see where we get here. It looks like I might be able to use just a larger size 9. Let's see where this one gets us. I think that'll work. Just right into that corner there. And I think what I'm going to do, rather than coming out let's see, what did I put on? I don't even remember. I just put the 1 on, that's right. Instead of coming out of that size 9, what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and come in as close as I can in that corner without pulling. My thread might pop up. No, I did good, yay. And I'm going to put a little 15 there, because there's that little tiny space there that a 9's not going to fit in, but a 15 will. And again, this is where it helps to kind of just lay it down flat instead of holding it, because you can really get a better visual. Okay, now we're going to go down. I'm going to go down to smaller, and we'll see where that takes us. I think we'll be okay. Going down, and we'll go, and when I go back through this row, I might find myself going in and tacking in a few corners rather than just going through that whole row. I could see a few places where I might need to do that. So again, we're going to add, I'm looking for small. There aren't too many in this batch. I don't know if that's good or bad, but it is what it is. So we're going to make our way around the corner here. And out the last 2. And it looks like maybe 4 will get us where we need. Let's see where 4 takes us. Takes us a little bit, actually, I'm thinking 3 is going to get us where we need. Yeah, I think so. And then we'll go out through just that last one. And I have to look at it. Okay, I think I'm going to add just one little 15 in there. Perfect. Okay, let's go back through that row now. And looking at it, you can probably tell by looking at it where I might need to maybe tack down a little bit. So let's see if we are on the same page with that. I think we're good around the corner here. We're good right here. But right here, you can see where I'm taking my needle out of this. I'm going to tack that down a little bit more, just so that it grabs that curve. And then what I'll do is I'll come in just down below that with my needle and go back up through that whole row, because we're going back through all the rows now. Going out that little 15 there. And then I'm going to grab up here. Oh, Rocky's barking now. You would think I'd have the sound of silence up here, but on my mountain, I do, except for my dog. Okay, and then we're gonna go all the way down. And I'm thinking, let me look at this. I think I might just add another one of these little 15s. Okay, so that's where we're at now. Let's take a look again. So if I do a row of 9s around there, we're still going to have a little gap, and I haven't figured out what I'm going to put there yet. I could put a flower there, but I think that would be almost, sometimes too much takes away from it. I kind of like that it's off balance. And the question I'm asking myself right now is, do I take this little thing off, or do I leave it on there? I think I'm going to take it off just because it's kind of going to bug me if I don't. And that one's going to be hard to catch, but I'll see if I can, because I don't want it flying away. I don't even know where it went. See, a loose one. And then I've got this little tiny, let's see if I can get it with my file here. It's going to be it's a different kind of metal. So it's probably a little bit, I think it's bronze. These are bronze. But you know what? I think it's good enough. You're just gonna try to get it better with the clippers. Sometimes you just got to live with stuff because you can't get rid of it. And nobody's going to notice it but me. I always tell my students, because sometimes little things bother them, and I'm like, nobody's going to notice it but you. And sometimes you can only do so much. And that's just going to have to be what it is. And the thing I was going to show you is I could glue this flat, but there's something about gluing it at this angle in this corner that just is the way it needs to be. I think the reason I'm saying that is because, if you look at these other two flowers, they're up, they're kind of up, and by putting it up a little bit itself, it just adds, it's just got to be that way. So I'm going to go ahead and glue it that way. And you may be wondering how, and it's just globbing a bunch more glue than you would normally on there. That's how you do it. So I can get my little E6000 out, and we're just going to put, and actually another little trick is to take some of that glue and actually put it in that corner. I know you guys are cringing like, oh, you're putting glue on beadwork, but well, I want it to stay. I want it to glue there. And then I'll just put a big blob here too and hope for the best. So we're going to let that glue dry. And let's look at this a little bit while we're at it. See where we're going with it. So that's going to dry. I may put like some 15s here just so it looks, maybe even in silver. It might be pretty to put like some silver 15s here so they almost look like it's part of the branch, right, coming out. And I'm almost thinking about putting a row of silver size 9s around both of these rather than the gold, just to kind of pull that silver up, because it seems like there's a lot of silver here and I'd like to get some silver up here. So I might do the row of silver 9s around this to pull that silver up, put some silver rows here. And then I found these delicas that kind of match. They kind of match the wolf, right? And so I think I'm going to put a row of those delicas, one row of that around here, because that kind of was going to pull that color down here. So once we get a row around here, blah, 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 then I'm going to need to figure out how I'm going to connect these two. And, you know, there's this little area in here. So let me stitch this all down and we'll take it from there. Okay, so let me show you what I've been playing with here a little bit. So what I did is I went ahead and added the silver around the outside, like I said, and I also added a row of the delicas around the bottom. See how that really complements and really makes this pop. And then I just tacked down these little 2mm silver beads in the corner. And so my plan is, if I have one, see, I have to make this connect. And I found these really cool, these little metal things. I don't even know where I got them. I cut them off of something. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to glue those in right here. And then this one is going to get glued in right here. And in that sense, they complement one another. They balance the piece. And then I also glued another little amethyst stone. It's a round one that I'm going to put up here. Because remember, it's all about balance. So I have purple down here. I tacked this little purple flower up here. So I'm going to put that stone right there. Then this is going to go on top. And this little doodad's going to go there. So everything's going to be balanced. Like I said, there's going to be a round stone here. I don't know. I'll probably just fill this in with some beads. And again, this I can go over with some beads. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to glue these two things down. And I'm going to stitch around them. And I think I'm going to use the smaller 15s because I'm just feeling like the normal 15 might be a little bit too big. So I'm going to stitch around those. And then I'll come back and show you where I'm at with all of this. So what I did is I went ahead and glued these down. And I used the small 15s. Again, with the back stitch 6 around. I didn't go all the way down because this flower is going to go into place here. I glued the amethyst stone down and I went ahead and went around with a row of 15 so it kind of balances out this. And again, here on this side, I went around with the smaller 15s. Now, one thing to note with the smaller 15s is you can't go back through them with the sharp needle. You have to use the long size 12 needle to go back through those, or a smaller needle. They just won't pass through the beads that many times. I think that's all I did while I was away, or we were away. And so what I want to do now is show you how we're going to tack this little flower down here to cover up that space. And so I'm going to bring my needle up right about here in the middle of that space. And we are going to add the flower, and then I got these nifty little beads here. I don't even know what they are, but they seem like they'll make a nice little center for that. And so we're just going to go back down into that and pull it nice and snug. And I'm going to go back through that bead again, that flower bead, because I really want to make sure that it's anchored down there good. And I'm going to go ahead and tie a knot there just to make sure that it's happy. I don't know if I'm going to cut my thread yet, but I want to make sure that that's not going to come loose. And I'm just looking it over. Now what I do want to show you is how I'm going to fill in some of the space over here. So I guess actually I am going to cut that. And we'll do a quick knot. And we're getting really close to cutting this, trimming it. I love trimming. It's probably my favorite part. I know a lot of you sweat it because you're unsure and you don't want to cut a thread. And, but if you cut a thread, you just stitch it back. It's not that big of a deal. But what I wanted to show you is this area here we want to fill in. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and I think I'm going to get these silver beads that I was kind of working with earlier, and I'm just going to show you how I'm going to fill that in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let me see where that gets me. It gets me right there, and that's about right. But what I'm going to show you is we're going to go right over that metal piece. So I'm going to come up in between those 4 beads, and what we're going to do is going to go right over that metal piece. So I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's try 8 and see. Yeah, that looks, well, actually, I'm going to add one more. And I guess what I'm trying to show you here is how you can take the beads and kind of just go right over something like that. I was able to, when I glued this, kind of tuck it in underneath these beads, but I kind of want to fill that space. It's filling in this space, and then it's giving it this really cool look here. Now I can't go back, obviously, in the middle of that because there's metal there. So I'm just going to go, that's why I added that one little extra bead. Okay, and everything likes to grab onto those flowers and stuff, so you kind of got to be careful. And let's add 4. And I'm kind of just trying to figure out what direction to go in. So in other words, I could go right up here this way with it, or I could go this way with it. I think I'm going to go up to the side. And you know what I'm going to do? I am going to add, I have these little tiny 2mm beads. I'm just going to add that onto the end there. Kind of just give it a little bit of a dimension. And then I will go back through those last 2 beads. I like that. And of course we go down and then we go back up. And I'm going to go back through that whole row. Come on. There you go. And it's okay if it's laying loose over the metal. It's not going to affect anything. Just got to see where I need to go back down. And I think, let me see when I get there. Yeah, that looks really cool, right? I'm kind of thinking, I was thinking, and let me see, let's just see what it looks like. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I was kind of thinking of taking that and making it go around, let me see if I can get it around that flower underneath and kind of hooking up with this row. But, no, I don't like the way that looks. Actually, that looks kind of cool, just going down. I think I'm going to do that. We'll just go down right in through there. Oh yeah, that looks cool. I like that. You know, so it kind of looks like it's, yeah, it's just this vine going up there. Now you know, we could go back up through that row again because I want to get back up here. So we might as well just go back up through that same row. It's just going to reinforce it. And just trying to make sure I'm going back through every one of those beads as we go over. And I think what I'm going to do up here is just real simple. I'm going to add, let's try 1, 2, 3 and see where that gets me. Yeah, well, I wanted it to go just a little bit further, and then I'm going to add another one of these, just like that. See, I'm kind of, yeah, I like that. So it kind of gives it this little staggered look. Now, you're right, trimming this will be a little tricky, but it's nothing we can't handle. Like I said, you can always, and you know, something to think about when you are getting close to the edge like that and you know you're going to trim it, is try to keep the thread over. Now I can see the thread there, so that's going to be a little challenge for me, but I'll deal with it when we get there. Now I think what I'm going to do here is maybe just add, yeah, I'm just going to tack one of those down. just to fill in this space here. That looks good. Okay. Come on, you can go back through. And I'm contemplating of adding one here just to make my life easier, because when I go to edge this, I'm going to have to go down, and if I put one here, then I won't have to do that. So I think I'm going to add one there just to make my, you know, kind of pre-planning a little bit so I don't have to try and make, I mean, I like the way that looks, but I just know it's going to be kind of a hassle to trim there. And that looks really good. That looks fine. And I think while I'm at it, I'm going to jump over here and add one of those 2mm silvers to this area here, just so that I don't have to deal with that either when I'm trying to trim all this. So now one little trick when you are really close to the edge and stuff, what you can do is take your needle in the back and just bring it out more so in the middle. So when you tie your knot, you're less likely going to cut that knot. So that's kind of just a little simple thing to do. Now I'm just looking at this and trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to edge. Now I'm wondering on this side if I shouldn't, I think just visually it might be kind of nice to add a little silver one there and see this little area here. Well, actually, this isn't going to be that difficult to trim, but I'm thinking I might go ahead and add another, so we'd have one, whoop, they're running all over. I'll add one there. And where did that other one go? Oh, it ran away, didn't want to get used. And then adding another one there. I think it kind of balances that out. So let me, I think I have a short thread here that I need to use up. I've got beads scattering all over the place. As I get to the end, I get excited as I get close to the end of a piece and the beads start to fly. Otherwise, I try to keep my desk fairly clean and organized and put beads away as I need, but that doesn't always happen at the end of a piece when I get all excited. So I think what I'm going to do now, since those are towards the edge, that's the loose bead that didn't want to get used. Okay. I know I'm going to come in right there, but I think I'm going to come in a little bit so that my knot, as I said before, so that my knot isn't so close to the edge. So I'm just kind of guessing where that's going to be. And then I'm going to come, rather than coming this way with the thread, because if I come this way with the thread out here and add the 2mm bead, it's more likely to get cut. But if I tack it down on the sides, like so, then there's not going to be a thread out there where it can get cut, okay? And then I'm just going to jump over to this one and do the same thing. Just going to go down like so. Yeah, I like the way that looks. So what do you guys think? I think I'm ready to cut this. This I just glued down. I could put a row of beads around it, but I really don't think it's necessary. So, okay, let's do that. So let's take this back into the middle a little bit. And tie that knot. Oh, did I get it? I'm going to go one more just to make sure I have it close and tight. I probably should have stitched through those balls, those little 2mm balls twice, but I'm getting lazy here. So I think we're ready to edge this. And in order, a student of mine turned me on to these. They're Jim Holtz scissors. They're kind of big, but these are the best trim scissors I have ever used. So I highly recommend them for when you do trimming. And like I said, I love, some people, I have some students that trim from the back so they don't cut. Oh, I don't know how that would work, but I'm going to show you how I'm going to trim this. And I hope you can see what I'm doing. So I'm just taking my scissors and I'm kind of like following along the edge of that row of beads, okay? Now here's one of those little balls, so we're just going to scoot around it. And I'm just following that edge of the row of beads. I can always trim more off if I need to, but you can't put it back on. So kind of just keep that in mind. And you know, you want to leave enough as well that you can sew to, because we're going to edge this. So we want to make sure that we leave enough of an edge that we have some suede to grab, okay? So we're working our way around, and you can see how these scissors work really great because you can really get into those tight little corners. Now see, this is a little place. Now remember, we put the thread on either side so I don't have to worry about cutting anything there. And then we're gonna come right back up here. I'm just gonna get rid of that, and we'll have a little point there which I can trim off. Going back down. Here. Maybe I should have put a row of 8 and 9s there, but too late now. Doesn't matter. Nobody will know but me. And you guys, I guess. Okay, so now I think I can get down around here. Down into there. All right. So we're just following that edge of the beads. That row of beads is kind of where I'm trimming to. I'm not trimming underneath it. And then I'm going to shoot out a little bit because I got that little extra row of beads I put there. And here I have to be kind of careful because I did tack this flower down on the end and I do not want to cut that. So I'm going to give it a broad girth. I'll look on the back and see if I can get closer. Again, here we go. And I did leave that branch on, as you can see, so we're just going to trim right under that because I didn't glue it down. All right. So I think we did good. Now I want to look, you can see on the back where that flower was, I think it looks like where I tacked it. I think. Trying to see if I can get a little, yeah, I think I can get a little bit more trim. And if not, I'll just re-stitch it. I'll just sew that flower back on. It's not a big deal. That's what's, okay, so there we are. Let me clean up some of these beads. So here's our piece. All right. I think it looks pretty cool. So now what I did, because I wasn't sure how I was going to put this dangle on, because to me it was too small by itself. And I looked and I looked and I looked through my stash, and I had this old coin, and it kind of pulls out the color of these brass things, and it kind of has a little bit of silver. So I think I'm going to use that for the bottom. I wonder what it would look like if I went that way. Now that I drilled a hole in it, I'm wondering, but then I don't have anything on this that I can attach it to. But I almost wonder if I don't like that better than this. Oh boy. Well, nonetheless, what we need to do next is we need to glue this piece up. Now, I am showing you guys just a lot of times when you're doing a pendant, you can just add a bail. You know, a bail is something that goes on the top, but this kind of necklace is going to be a little bit different because what we're going to do is we're going to glue some suede into the back of the piece that's going to go off of either side. You could also bead something that goes off to the side, but that's what we're going to do. So what I just like cardboard, and this is just like some crackers. Some crackers there. I like to use cardboard. to do all of my backing, just because that's what we're doing, is we're going to add a backing to this piece now. Some people don't use backings, and that's fine, but I think my production work taught me that you want to have backing, because what it does is it's going to take this piece, and rather than this piece being all flimsy like this, if you put it on cardboard, it's going to keep it nice and stiff and support the piece and make it a really strong piece of jewelry. So I like to just use, you can use any kind of marker. This is just a gel pen. And I'm just going around the piece and hoping that the gel pen is actually working. And we're just going all the way around the piece. Come on. I kind of like the gel pen because I've used you can use marker. If you use a marker, try to use a fine tip marker. You don't want something that's gonna, leave a mark on your suede. Oh shoot, I just moved it ever so slightly. Okay, did we get it? I didn't get that top part there. I was kind of wondering. All right, we got it that time. All right, so now what we want to do, just cut this excess off, is I'm going to go back with my scissors and we're going to cut it about, you want it to be about 1/8 of an inch smaller. And the reason you're cutting it smaller is because you don't want to be stitching up through this cardboard. I mean, sometimes it's inevitable that you will be stitching up through the cardboard if you didn't trim it real good. But you're just going to go around and try to make it a little bit smaller without wailing too much off, because you do want some support around those edges. Okay. So kind of just going around. I'll cut this off. Continuing. I don't know what's going on here, but we'll just wing it. Okay, coming around to the end here. Nice. And all right, so now what we're going to do is we're going to turn this over and see how we did. It looks like the bottom here is really good, and as you can see, I have a little spot. I'll get another marker. Like right here, I'm going to try and cut that out a little bit more. And this looks like I cut too much there, but it's not a big deal. I think I'm going to probably trim around there a little bit more. I could probably trim a little bit there. Other than that, it looks pretty good. So I'm going to go back and get that little, sometimes it helps if you turn it onto the other side when you're trying to get those little corners. And this, I just think I needed to trim a little bit off. And up here. All right, let's see what it looks like now. That looks pretty good. Nice job. Nice job, Heidi. All right. Now, we've got our trusty glue. And I have a piece of suede here. So I love this stuff. It's tacky glue. I like the super thick tacky glue. And what I like about this container is I can just dip my toothpick right into the container. I use this glue for everything except gluing cabochons. So whenever I'm gluing something that doesn't need, like a cabochon, you want that extra strength because you don't want your stones popping off and such. But when you're just gluing suede to paper or cardboard or putting your backing on and stuff like that, I would highly recommend this stuff. It's a little bit thicker than the normal tacky glue, and the only place I can find this is, unfortunately, Amazon.com. They used to have it at the local craft store in Boulder, but I can't find it anymore. I don't know why. So I can just dip my toothpick directly into this, which is lovely, and then I can just spread it on my cardboard. I find it's much easier to spread it onto your cardboard than it is to spread it on the back of your piece. Okay, so I'm gonna just spread that on. And the toothpick, as you can see, works great because you can just move it where you want. And then, and the other nice thing is it just comes right off. It's friendly, your dogs can use it, your kids can use it. It's not going to hurt you. Now I am going to turn this over, but I don't want to do it on my nice suede thing here. So I'm just gonna move it over here because I don't want to get glue on that. And I'm just pressing it all down flat on. All my beads are going to get nice and flat. So if there are any imperfections, this will take care of it. Okay. And then I'm going to take some of my ultra suede. And you know, there is a front and a back to ultra suede. The front is a little bit fuzzier than the back. So this is where I'm going to glue this to. And I try to be be good about how I cut and use my suede. But ultra suede is a bit expensive, but when you think about how much you're using, you really aren't using that much. So a yard, I think it goes for like $49 or something a yard, and it's going to go a long way. I cut the black at 20 inches. It's probably more than what I need, but you can always cut it off. You can't uncut it. Once you cut it, it's that length. And then you have to open this all back up again. So what we're doing is, again, we're spreading the glue, this time on the cardboard. And the thing about this tacky glue is it dries really pretty fast. I mean, it's not dry yet, but since it's super tacky, it's going to hold really well. Okay, so now I'm just folding this in half, trying to figure out where my center is. It's about there. And I'm just going to put this right, and I'm just going to embed it right in the back of this piece. And then I'm going to put some on top, just so that it's nice and snug and happy. I mean, we want it to stay there. It's not going to really move around, believe me. Okay, and then we're going to put this right on top. Let's turn it around now. And we're gluing that backing on. And what you want to keep an eye on is where these end, you don't want it coming out over here. You want it, in this case, for this necklace, you want it to come out where these points are, okay? And then we're just kind of taking our thumbs and fingers, and I'm kind of turning it over now and making sure that that's glue is nice around there. You can actually see where that dent is. Okay. Whoop, move that over a little bit. Just want to make sure it's nice and happy. And then we're going to let that dry a little bit. So we have our piece, glue is dried, and now what we're going to do is trim the backing off. So it's pretty much similar to what we did earlier with trimming, but this time we're going to follow the suede. We're going to cut the suede the same way that we did earlier. So you're just kind of following that suede direction. And then when you get up here to where the cord comes through, you're just going to cut behind the cord as cleanly as you can. Down the other side. I save all those little scraps because they're great for earrings and other kind of doodad stuff that you need, smaller projects that you have. I always pretty much cut my project suede a little bit larger than I think I'm going to need it, because it's always easier to have more than not enough. I mean, there are techniques you can use on how to add a piece of suede if you didn't have enough, but I always feel it's better to have a little bit more suede than not enough. Okay, so we're going around the bend here. following the suede. You don't need to cut the suede that you already cut. We're just following that along. Just like so. And underneath the branch, on the home stretch here, like so. And then you can maybe go back around and just see if there's any places that you need trim a little bit more. I got a little bit here that I need to go, but I think it looks pretty good. So I did end up redoing this because I think it's going to look better like that. So what I ended up doing is I took this apart. I glued it on. It was still wet, so I took it off. I tried to drill through this ceramic so that I was thinking I could just, have a hole on the top, but it wasn't. There's no way I could get a drill through it. So I glued this to a piece of suede. I back stitched around trying to match that. And then I trimmed it, edged it, and then I glued it onto the coin that I had before, covering the hole where I glued, because I put a hole in that coin beforehand. And then I just flipped it over and I backed it with this. I cut it this suede a little bit smaller than the coin. And then I trimmed that and then edged it. So now I can attach this by just stitching through the suede. So I don't know. I just liked the way that looked much better. Okay, so we're going to edge. Edging is another thing I really like to do. Make sure you got a good yard of thread because it's better to have enough thread that you're going to be able to go all the way around the piece. Now, when I start my edging, I like to go, just kind of like when I start my beadwork, I like to go in a little corner, a little crook. Here, let's just start right here because I know, and what I like to do, what I'm doing is I'm taking my needle and I'm going in between. This is your backing, this is the foundation, and you're going to go with your needle in between those and out the front of your foundation. And by doing that, it's hiding your knot, okay? And then I'm going to just simply go back through that once again. And what we're doing here is we're basically stitching the backing and the foundation together, but we're going to use beads to do it. So I start with 4 beads. I start with 4 of the 15 millimeter beads. And in this case, we're just going to move down on the other side of this ball. And going back, this time I'm going back through the backing, coming out through the front and the foundation, and I'm going to go up through the bottom of that last bead, okay? And see how it just edged that beautifully right around that ball? That's kind of why I wanted to start there. Then the next time, you're only going to add 3 beads. And you're going to go down, I don't know, I want to say 1/8 of an inch or so. You kind of got to figure it out for yourself how to space it just right. If you space it too far apart, it's going to be, you'll see a little bit of thread. And if you put it too close together, it's going to get real lacy looking. And again, you're going through that bottom and out that last bead. And then we're going to add 3 more. So at this point, you're just adding 3 beads at a time and making sure that you're grabbing the foundation. The one thing you want to try not to do is you don't want your needle to grab the thread of this row of beads because sometimes it can pull it out, okay? So we're just grabbing the backing and the foundation. And we're just going to work our way around this whole piece. And I'm just going to wing it here for a while, and you can kind of watch me because I think it really helps to just, once you get the spacing right, it goes really fast. And like I said, if you want to add more beads, like if you wanted to add 5 beads, it would be more, you can do that. It's going to be more of a lacy edging. And then you can also do less beads. I think if you're only using 2 beads, I think they call it a picot. I don't really know the names of a lot of the stitches because I just do my own thing. But if you only use 2 beads, you're going to, obviously the spacing isn't going to be as as far apart. Again, this is a edging that works quickly for me. Some people like the picot. They like it not so far apart, and that's fine. Again, this is my tutorial on teaching you how I do my techniques. But again, I would really encourage you to use what you like and what works for you. So as you can see, you can make some pretty good headway with this edging. And I'm just going to get around this corner here and show you a couple little, because it's a little bit trickier on the other side here. So bear with me babbling as I work my way around. I promise I won't take you through the whole thing. But I just wanted to show you when we get around here some things that we were going to have to adjust as we go. Now we are going behind this little branch here, and it shouldn't mess anything up. We're just going to take our stitch and go right behind that branch. Okay. Oh, and I think I only picked up 2 beads, but you know what? I'm not going to worry about it because it's behind the branch, and nobody's going to know but me. Oh, well, and you guys. Okay, so we're just going under behind the branch here. We're going to do that. Now here we have a perfect example of going on the other side of this flower. I want it to go on that side. And get out of my way. This stuff kind of gets in the way when you're doing the edging, when you get close to it, but we can figure it out. Now I think what I'm going to do, because I want to go around this flower and I don't think 3 is going to do it, so I'm going to add 4. And that way, when I get to the other side of this flower, see how that just edges right over, and it kind of makes a nice little edge around that flower. So that's what I mean by you can kind of adjust the number of beads that you put on to make them work how you want them to around your bead work. Okay, now we're getting close to this where this cord's going to be, so I'll show you how we're going to basically just bead right on top of it. But it's also, you can also use the edging to kind of anchor that cord in place, so it's not going to slide around on you. Not that it would, it's glued in there pretty good. Again, I think I'm running through some cardboard, but that's okay. Usually you learn how to put your backing in real good once you've gone through some cardboard too many times. That's where thimbles come in handy too. But see, if I wasn't using my sharp, I know a lot of people use the longs for edging, but I just feel the sharp is a little bit stronger. It's more like a beading. It's almost like good for leather, beading on leather. Okay, so we're getting close. All right. Now we're going to go ahead with the 3, and that's going to bring us now this time this is where the cord, you kind of got to be careful because the cord has a way of getting in the way. So now I'm looking at this. I think I'm going to add 1. No, you know what? I'm going to add 2. And I'm going to go right next to this cord. Add that 1. And then I'm going to add 3. And I'm going to go over the top of this cord. Okay, I'm going to grab that foundation from on the other side of that cord, and I'm going to make sure you get a good hunk of that foundation and backing. And then this is going to go right over the top of the cord. Okay, just like that. And then you just keep on going from there. So hopefully you can see what I did there. This is what the back looks like in the front. All right, I'm gonna keep going and I'll see you in a bit. So I made it all the way around and I wanted to show you here at the end. Actually, I'm gonna take that last stitch out so I can show you. Rethread my needle here. So we're all the way around, and this is what we have. We have the space in between. So I'm only going to need to add 1 bead in here. You might need to add 2 or 3. And then what you're going to do when you have that last bead on there is this is the first bead that you started with. What you're going to do is you're going to take your needle and you're going to go through the top of that first bead that you put in, and then you're going to push yourself out into the back, okay? And so you can't even tell where you started. And then this is where you are in the back of your suede. And I go, again, I like my double over and then 1. And then what I like to do is take my needle right next to that knot and just push it down a little ways and pull it out, pull it nice and tight, and then cut it, okay? So that's how you finish the back knot off. All right, so now all we have to do is add this dangle, and I'm gonna need some more thread. I don't have any spare thread hanging around. So we'll show you this simple little process. We're almost done here. And then we can add a couple beads on that cord if you want. Cut it to the length you want. Boy, I'm having a hard time threading my needle. All right. Come on. Sometimes if you're having a hard time, you can cut the thread at an angle. I think it's just because I'm in a rush. My dogs are starting to get anxious. They know it's time to go for a walk. And it's time for me to go stretch my legs as well. So it's a beautiful day in Colorado. We got a bunch of snow out there, so I'm probably gonna have to put my snowshoes on. But I got a good path going. So once you get a path going, it's really not so bad. Okay, so here's where we're at. We're gonna put a little loop here. And so what we're gonna do is we're gonna turn it over on the side. And I'm gonna, again, just like when you started your edging, you're gonna, when I add a dangle, I like it to go from either side. So I'm looking at this as being the middle. If I turn it around, so I'm gonna put my needle in right here, and I'm trying to get it in between, again, the foundation and the backing, and come up so that it'll hide my knot. Looks like I did that. And then I'm gonna add, I think I'm gonna add, let's see, I'm gonna add 5 beads, I think. And I'm gonna come and go into the back of this piece as well. Come out. So we're doing this. Oh, wait a second, I'm on the opposite side now. Okay, take needle out, start over. I thought I was gonna come out on that side. Ah, geez. Okay, so I'm gonna go on this side of the pendant, the little drop. Okay, so we're gonna be like that. Is that gonna work? Yes, I think it should. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this time we're gonna go back in right where we came out, only this time we're going out the front to the back. Okay, and then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna move, where am I? Did I go through? I think I went through a couple of beads, and then I didn't want to do that. So go back out those couple of beads. We'll get it here. And what I'm going to do now is move down a little bit. So now I'm on this side. Okay, coming down, and I'm going to add 5 beads. And this time we're going to come up on the other side of this pendant. A little bit down and come out front and add 5 beads. And we're going to go down on this side. Okay. So let me see as I'm looking at that. I don't know if you guys can see as well as I can see, because it's one of those things you have to kind of hold it up and you can't see what it looks like when I'm holding it up. It looks okay, but I'm going to go back through and add some more rows here, because I'm really going to make it so you can't even tell what we're doing. I'm going to go out a bit more on the side this time. I don't know if you could see what I'm doing. Let me move these beads over. I had this problem in the last tutorial I did, is nobody could see what I'm doing when I'm at this stage, because there's just, I have to hold it up to see it hanging, and you guys can't see what it looks like then. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And the reason I'm doing this again is just, if you look at this, you can see that that last row went in here, so I'm going to add this on this side a little bit. It's okay to have several layers here. Okay, so see, now it looks like a little bit better. Now we have 3 rows. And I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this funny little, fancy little thing. I don't know if it's going to work, because I'm trying to show you something, so it probably won't. But instead of 5 beads, I'm going to add like 6, 8. And so what's going to happen is this is going to come around the back, and I'm going to see if I can make this happen. It may not, because I'm trying to show you, but I'm going to, you know what, I'm going to just make it go into this silver bead here. So I'm kind of just being kind of quirky, fancy here, and seeing what's going to happen. And this time I got 6 beads on, and you know what? Oh, that'll be kind of cool. I think I'm going to go back. So let me see. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to see if I can go into this bead's like wide open, saying, "Go, pick me, pick me." So that's what I'm going to do. So, oh, that looks kind of cool. So see, what I'm doing is I'm just kind of like playing this little dance here. Now let's flip it over, because you know we want the back to look just as pretty as the front. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we did 8 last time. So let's take 8 and kind of go across and go in here and out the front. So it has this fancy little thing going on the back as well. Now we're on the front here. And I kind of want to stick with, let me see. I'm sorry, but I have to hold it up. I'm thinking. What could I do to make this cool and different? I kind of want to keep going in that same direction though. So I added another 6, and I'm thinking I can end it. Ooh, that might look kind of cool. I'm just going to end it like right here, I think, this time. Yeah, that looks kind of interesting. I think that looks like I planned it, and I really didn't plan anything. But so I think I'm going to end it. I just got to hold it up one more time. I think, yeah, I think that works good. So, okay, I'm going to lay it down. You guys can look at it. I think you can see. I think that looks good. We're going to end it there. I'm just going to end it, because otherwise, sometimes you can overwork things too. Another way you could do a knot, since this is coming up way back in there, is just to grab a little piece of suede like that. Sometimes it's hard to do the other knot I do. So you could just grab a little piece of suede and just kind of do it like that. And then again, you want to put your needle in right next to it, the knot, and then you can just cut it. So the back looks just as clean. The back looks just as nice as the front, okay? So here we are. I have silver and gold since we have silver and gold on our piece. So if I start with maybe, and then maybe we put these two like that. Ooh, and then they, ooh, I like that, okay. So we'll just go with these two. And then it kind of just finishes up that cording, so it's not just this black cord, but it looks like, wow. And you could actually go all the way up with it, but I don't want to. So we're just gonna call that good. Okay, so here we are with our beautiful finished piece, and I'm just gonna show you, these are just really quick little ends. Now, something to keep in mind, because I learned this a long time ago when I had a customer, one of my first customers, and I think she bought a brooch or something, and she said, you know, I'm right-handed and this is a left-handed brooch, and I never really thought about it before because I was just gluing on the pin back or the necklace clasp, and I never thought about it. But if you're right-handed, you kind of want the lobster claw to be on this side of the back so that when you put it on, you can use it. And that's not to say that you can't have it on here, but if it just helps if you're right-handed to have the lobster claw or whatever the clasp, if you're using a lobster claw on the hand that you use a lot, and then putting the chain on the other side. So these are really easy little things. They're just, you kind of just stick the cord in there. I put some glue in there and then you clamp them shut. So I find it's easiest to take the cord and kind of just dip it in the glue. And I put these on, I put the little split ring and the lobster claw on first, just so I don't have to come back and show you that step. I guess I'm getting tired and lazy, huh? But it seems to work just as well. And then you're just kind of close. It depends on the end cap that you have. There's so many end caps on there, and I'm sure this is pretty much a real simple process that any of you can figure out on your own. But I'm going to take you to the very end of how I do it. So then again, we're dipping this one into the glue. And we're putting that end cap on. And in this case, we just clamp it down. Make sure it's good and tight. I like to add the chain because it gives people a little bit more flexibility, because some people like their necklaces longer than other people. So there we have it. I wanted to take a minute to just thank you for spending the time with me today, and I hope I was inspirational. I hope it makes you want to get into your bead stash. I know you all have a big bead stash, most beaders do, and kind of use some components and pieces that you normally wouldn't use. I hope it inspires you to do that. And I also left International Wolf Center's website so you can go check them out yourself, maybe leave a donation. I know the animals on this planet right now need all the help we can give them, as so do people on this planet need our help, and so does the planet itself. It's really a time right now where we need to come together and help and support all of us.